Aloha and welcome to this WOD on testing, and this will be a pretty good, I think, a pretty interesting WOD for you because it's going to introduce you to the notion of integration tests and how you do them. It's pretty easy to do. Just a few things you have to keep aware of as you create your tests, and we've got plenty of nice examples here to help you along. So what we're going to do is follow the kind of the use case approach, which I recommend, where you start off by thinking about different kinds of end-to-end interactions with the system. And we're just going to do a couple of them for this WOD. There's other ones that would work, that would be important for the Digits application if you're trying to go through all the different kinds of use cases. We're just going to do two. The other ones, go ahead and do them on your own if you want to have more practice creating tests. They're very straightforward, just like the ones we're going to do in this. And the other thing to to stress here is that you should have the play example fluentlennium and the play example form applications available to you, because we're going to be making use of the code in these applications while doing this WOD. Okay. All right. So we're going to start the timer. And the master application, it's up to date. You can see it's running and it's reasonable. And we're going to create a branch called testing one. So let me go to the master branch and create testing one. And create this branch. And we'll check and we'll see that it's now testing one. And then we're going to add a small change to a file and commit it. So let's, go anywhere. We'll go here, add a space, and say starting WOD. Okay. And the first thing we're going to do, actually, this is what we should have done as our sample thing, but we're going to go to the test folder, which has an interior tests, and actually this should be called tests, not tests. So I'm going to quickly refactor this, call it tests, and I'm going to rename the sub-packages, and I'm going to click OK. Now, why do I want it to be tests rather than test? It's because we want symmetry with the application. This is called controllers, that's plural, models, plural, views, plural. So, I'm just going to pick test plural just for consistency with the way the other packages are named. Obviously, semantically, or obviously in terms of the execution of the system, it could be called test, it'd be just fine, but I think it's a little nicer. And so just going in here to application test, you can see that we've got these unit test. This is a ridiculous test here. I don't know even why I guess they're trying to illustrate the use of the fluent assertion. But we're not this. Here you have an example of a test where you're not actually running the system. You're just basically invoking the render method of the index Scala.html class, and so that's a nice testing strategy. It's a unit test style. But we're not going to be doing that for this style of testing. We're going to always focus from the outside in, test against the entire application. And so because of that, it's okay to simply just delete that. Okay, kind of crazy, but that's what we're going to do. So then we want to create a method called test basic retrieval in the integration test class. So we'll go in here, and we'll want to say, we want to call this test basic retrieval. Okay, and it should just test to see that the home page can be retrieved. And what that means is that we get rid of this code. This is basically all we need to do, except probably when we run this test, it's going to fail because I doubt that string actually exists in the class. So what I'm going to do is go down to my console, get out of the run method, and invoke test to see what happens. Okay, and so here's an example of what a failing test case looks like. So what it's doing in the test actually, it's looking at the browser page source, the source of, the page source, and checking to see whether the string home page occurs in it. And so when it fails, what it starts off by doing is showing you the text of the page source, because that's what it's doing the comparison again. And then at the very end it says, should contain the string home page, and it doesn't. Okay, so this is kind of giving you nice feedback, as long as you can kind of understand what's going on. And in the case of page source, you get all this huge amount of output, but actually that output can be interesting in many cases to see what your page source was at the time the test fails. Okay, so let's look through here, and what I'm going to notice, I think, is that the title of this contains digits. And so let's change this to actually say that our page source contains digits. Okay, then we'll go down here. So I save that out. I'm going to rerun test. And this time, if all goes according to plan, we'll see that everything is fine. Okay, so we get this. So you see, what you can see on the last time, the last line said error. Okay, this time the last line says success. So that's when you run your test. All you need to do is just look up one line from where the cursor is and see whether it says success or error, and then you know what happened. Okay, so let's move this guy back where he belongs. Okay, so we've got test basic retrieval working. There's some boilerplate code here. You've got this running. You've got a test server. You've got a port 333. You've got this crazy fake application in-memory database thing. You've got this HTML unit. All of that is just kind of boilerplate setup for using fluentlennium, a mock-up database which has no data in it, and so forth. In general, don't really worry about it. Just kind of make, what I recommend and what you'll see is just make a copy of the method and then paste it and then edit the name and then edit the interior stuff here to do all your different tests. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. So now, the good thing about test basic retrieval is if that test fails, then you know something is totally messed up with your environment. Okay, this should be and actually let's fix one thing here. I noticed that we've embedded the 333 in there. That's crazy. What we want to really do is do that. Okay, so let's just check. After you make a change to a test, you always want to kind of check to make sure that it still works. Okay, so everything looks fine. And so now we're going to create a method called test login. So let's copy this and test login. And let's kind of create a documentation that says that this should test that the admin user can successfully log into the system and log out. Okay. And now we're going to get into the use of the page object pattern. And so the first thing we have to do is we have to create an index page class. And so to do that, I'm going to create a new package, and it's going to be called test.pages. And we got our package info, and so it holds the page classes. Okay, we don't need that anymore. And then what I'm actually going to do is inside the fluentlennium, I've got this index page class, and so I'm going to copy that into digits because it's a good template for what we need to do. Okay, so now inside digits, we've got index page. This should be called tests.pages. And we've got all our different imports and we're going to change this to say implements behavior of index page. Okay, now the one thing that so it includes this this basic index page, which takes the driver and a port. Okay, we override the get URL, and the is at page, we have to assert that the title is equal to, and the title, remember before, is digits, but the problem with this is that just knowing that the title is equal to digits doesn't actually prove to us that we're in the index page, because every single page has that title. Okay, so in order to make this work, what you want to do is you want to have some unique aspect of each page, which you can use to check to make sure during your test that you're actually at the page you want to be at. There's many different ways to do this, but a simple way to do it is if we go into main.scala and we notice that we bring the page, we provide the name of the page for each page. So what if we did this? Okay, let's change the title to say digits : and then the page name. Okay, then what we can do, so then if we look in the application, we see that what we're going to pass in as the name of the page's index. This now enables us in our test, in our index page class, to say, to figure out whether we're at that page by saying, does the title equal that? Okay? And this should be false for any page other than the index page, and that's a nice implementation of that. Okay, and then this particular method we're not going to have for the index page because there's no form on the index page, so we'll get rid of that one. Okay. So what are the behaviors associated with the home page? Oh, excuse me. There was a login on the digits page on the home page. Oh no. Here's the home page. Okay, let's take a look. And so you're going to see that we kind of are going to go back and forth between running the application to see what's going on and running the test cases. Okay, so here it is. This is what the digits page looks like. There's not a lot of behavior here except to click the login link. Okay, so let's make a method called public void go to login. Okay, and what that is going to do is essentially find this particular link and click it. Okay, so what we need to do is now learn to use our fluentlennium methods. Okay, so one example is we say find, and what we're going to look for is the ID called login on this page, and then we're going to click it. And it's as simple as that. So click on the login link. Okay? But let's look at our page source here. Okay? The problem is that if we look at our actual login link, there's no ID associated with that, so it's going to be hard for us to find it. Okay? So what we want to do is actually go back to our main, and where it says, where we find our particular link, which is right here, we're going to add an ID so that our test can find it easily. So let's pass that. Let's create that ID in our login link so that now our test case can find it easily. Okay? So the second thing we want to do is, we go back here, let's look at the, we're going to go to the next, click on the login link, and then fill out the login form. So we also need, in addition to an index page, we need a login page. So I think the easiest way to create one of those with minimal typing is we're just going to save this thing out, the index page.java, as login page.java, and of course it won't compile till we actually call it login page. Okay, and then so this all works. Now what about our index? Let's see what we pass in when we go to the login page. Okay, so we're passing in the string login. So if we go to our login page, we could make some kind of public string, public static string with these names in it, so we wouldn't have to repeat the typing. That would be a slightly less brittle way to do it. So you can think about that as you want. So clicking on the login link, okay, let's, okay, so we don't need this method because this is part of the index page. Okay, so now we have a login page and we have a index page. Let's go back to our integration test and let's try to write the first little piece of this. Okay, and the way that we're going to do that is we're going to start by saying index page equals new index page, and then we're going to pass it browser.get driver and our port. Okay, and there's examples of this in for example, in play example form, if we go to test.pages, index page, test.pages, view test. Okay, so here's an example of doing it. We pass in this number, which is the ID of the user, but we don't need that. So this is code that's very close to what you need. Okay, so we're going to, and then we have to import this. Okay, so we're going to say index page, and then we're going to go to the index page, and then we're checked to see that we are at the index page. And actually, it'd be fun to just simply run that test. So let's Control D out of here, and just make sure that our index page method is working okay. If it's not working okay, then this index page is at, which has that assert inside it, is going to fail. Okay, so we can see we tested we ran this test login, it all passed, so we're excited so far. So the next thing we want to do is we want to say go to login. That should take us to our login page, and once we're there, what we do is we create an instance of a login page. Okay, and then we can say, and then we can import it. And then we can say login page dot is at to kind of, get us to, help us ensure that in fact this go to login method does the right thing and that we're at the page that we want to have. So we can run these tests. And the test passed, so all is good so far. Okay? So we've basically gone to the index page, we've checked to make sure we're there, we clicked on the link to go to the login page, we now know we're at the login page. The next thing we have to do is actually log in. So let's view the page source of this form, and what we're going to notice is that we have IDs for the email, we have an ID for the password, but we don't have an ID for the button. Okay? So that's going to require us, and this is something that's going to happen as you do testing, is quite frequently with your applications, is you're going to have to go through and check to make sure that you have IDs associated with your elements, because that's going to be the way with fluentlennium that it makes it most easy and robust to look up elements and manipulate them programmatically. Okay, so what we have to do next is go back and find that login form, which is right here. And we notice we've got an ID field here, an ID field here, but in this input, we don't have an ID. So let's call this ID equals submit. So we've got one. Okay. And now we can get rid of that login form. Okay, so in our login page, what we're going to have to do is add in methods to fill out all of those little pieces. Okay? And there's a variety of ways we can do this. What I'm going to show you is, one way to do it is to say, let's just have a method that does the login action for us in its entirety. In order to do that, we need to know what the admin email and the admin password actually is. So let's go back up here, because in our global method, we actually conveniently have the code which gets the admin email and the admin password. So let's copy that, and let's go back into our into our login page. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get our admin email and admin password, and then we're going to say fill email with our admin email. And then we're going to say fill password dot with admin password. Okay. And then we're going to use this submit method to click that submit button. And that should be all we need to do in order to perform the login. Okay? So let's go ahead and actually invoke this method and see what happens. So let's go back to our integration test, and we're going to say login page dot login. Save this out. Login page dot login. What did I do wrong? Login page. Login page dot login. The method login. The method login is undefined for login page. Oh, because I forgot to state it. Okay. All right. So now that works. Let's go back here. Let's run test. Okay. Okay, so it's successful. So we think we've logged in, but how do we actually know that we've logged? Like, we like to verify that the login actually worked. Okay, and so that's a problem for us. Let's run the application and let's kind of see what happens when we log in. Okay, so here we are. And we know that I just kind of remember what maybe I remember. Okay, I do remember. Okay, so once we log in, we're at the index page, and we've got the new contact link is there. We've got the name of the user there. We've got a logout link, and we've got a table. Okay, so what we'd like to do actually in the index page, we'd like to be able to implement, I think, a public Boolean is logged in method. Okay, and so the question is how do we how do we assert that in fact we're logged in. And there's a variety of ways to do it. And one way we could do it is by checking to see whether or not the logout link is actually there. Okay? And so the way we might do that is we'll go to logout and we'll create an ID equals logout so that we can actually find that element that's going to be useful to us. And then in our index page we can say find pound logout. Okay, and then the pound logout dot is empty. Okay, so we're going to say return. Okay, and if we can't find any elements corresponding to actually what we want to say is if this is empty, then there is no logout link there, so we actually want to say return not. Okay, so returns true if the user is logged in, i.e. the logout link is present. Okay. Kind of convoluted. Alright, and so then let's go back to our integration test and we'll say assert that login page, index page dot is logged in dot is true. Okay. So now let's get rid of this and let's say test. Okay, and we have success. So now we've got this nice little Boolean method that checks to make sure that we're logged in, and we've asserted that we've actually got to our login page. Okay, so that's good. Let's see. Let's go back to our WOD and see what else we're supposed to do for this one. Log in. We check to make sure it's successful, and log out, and then check to make sure that the logout is successful. Okay, so now that we're on the login, or excuse me, in the index page. Okay, now we have to, let's create a public void logout method, and that's pretty easy. We're just going to say find pound logout dot click. Okay, so logs out a logged in user. Okay. And if we go to, let's run, okay, so here we are. Let's see what happens if we refresh. Okay, so here we are, and we click log out, and we should go back to a page that looks like this. So how might we now, so now the next thing we might want to do is, so we're going to do index page dot logout. Okay, and then we want to make sure that we're actually logged out, and so the cute way to do that is to say dot is false. Okay, so let's Control D and do test. Okay, all right, so that, I think, finishes our test login method, okay? Which looked like it was, kind of a hassle. It was mainly only a hassle because we had to build up some behaviors and add some IDs to our our template classes so we could inspect behavior. But now what you're going to see is that we're going to build this new one called test new contact, and that one is going to actually go faster because we know what we're doing. And we also have some nice template code. So we're going to start off by saying copy, paste, and this is going to test that. What is it going to test? Test that we can add a new contact. Okay, so we're going to call this test new contact. Okay, and how do we do that? We're going to go to the index page, log in, go to the new contact page. So we're going to go to the index page, check to make sure we're there, go to login page, check to make sure we're there. Then we're going to log in, and we're going to check to make sure that we're there. So the first part of this is actually going to be just like before. Okay? And now we want to say index page. Let's actually just write the methods now that we're kind of familiar with what we want to do. We want to say index page, go to new contact. Okay? And then we're going to say actually new contact page equals new contact page, and then as you might expect we're going to check to see is at, make sure that we got there correctly, and then we'll say new contact page dot make contact. And then we will say, what do we want to do after that? We can then go back to browser.go to, you can just traverse back to the index page there. And then we're going to have to check to make sure that our contact has been created. So there's a few things we've got to create here. We've got to create, go to the new contact page. And so to do that, we're going to have to go back in and make an ID for this link, which is our new contact link. So ID equals new contact. Okay, and once we have that, then in our index page behavior, we can say copy this, and then we can say click on the new contact link, go to new contact, and then we're going to find new contact, and we're going to click on it. Okay, so that fixes that, and then we need this new contact page. So let's take, I don't know, the login page, and we'll file save as new contact. Okay, and then we'll new contact and new contact. Okay, and then let's just check to make sure what we call this thing when we, okay, so the page is new contact with no spaces. So we'll say new contact to make sure that we're there. And then we have this method make contact, right? And so if we go to this, what we'll see, actually maybe it's easier to see, I don't know which way is easier to see. We go here and we refresh. You can either look at the template or you can run the application to see how it works. They're both good. So let's go to new contact and then view page source. and then let's look here. So we have a input ID first name, a text field ID last name, an ID called telephone, and an ID called telephone type, and that's a select. So we're going to have a little crazier kind of pattern there. And then we have the add button, and we have a button there that doesn't have an ID in it. So let's go to new contact and we can say ID equals submit. Okay, but otherwise it's going to be first name, last name, telephone, telephone type. Okay. So we want to make this, create this make contact method in the new contact page. Okay. And so most of this is going to be really pretty straightforward. So we're going to start, we're going to fill out let's actually do this way. Let's pass in string first name, string, and you'll see why in a minute, string last name, string telephone, and string telephone type. Okay, and so we're going to fill the ID called first. What is the ID called? First name. Okay, with what we're going to pass in as first name, and then we're going to fill last name with last name, and then we're going to fill telephone with telephone. Okay, and then we got this telephone type, which is a select. Okay, and that's, so it's real easy to do this, filling out a text field, but the select is a little bit different, and this is where our play example form is going to come in handy. Okay, so we go in here, and you're just going to kind of have to remember how the play example form works. But it turns out that select GPA is an example of where you pass in a string, and you're gonna use this. You're gonna select that particular string in the pull down list. And so what I'm going to do is just simply copy this, and then go back to our new contact page and paste this in. We're going to find a select, okay, element, and the ID of that select element is telephone type, and then we're going to find the option with the string that we pass in, telephone type, this time passing that string, right? Okay, and then we're going to click that, and that's the way we actually select it. And then our button is going to be of type ID submit, and we'll just click that, submit. Okay, so that's what's required to do the make contact. Okay, and that means we have to modify our integration test, because now we're going to actually pass in Joe, I don't know, Montana, telephone 1 2 3 4 5 6 1 2 3 4, and then the telephone type is, let's say it's mobile. Okay. Oh, and we're probably going to have to import this. Okay. We're going to go to the index page, and then we want to find out whether or not on that index page we have that test. Okay, so one simple way to do that is, let's just assert that the browser page source contains, whoops, I'm sorry, assert that the browser page source, okay, dot contains, and we'll look for Montana, because that's not going to be there if we didn't just add it. And this is in fact the reason why I wanted to pass these strings in there explicitly, so that in the same method, you know, that the string Montana doesn't occur in some other method and then also in this method. It makes it clear the relationship between them. Okay, so let's see if our test new contact works. So we're going to say test. Okay, so there we have it. Let's see what else we have to do in our WOD. So we've got our test new contact page. We verified that the test worked because in fact our browser source now contains Montana. And you could do something like, for example, if you were concerned that things didn't, you know, weren't the way that you wanted them, you could always do something like this: system out print line browser dot page source, and that would print out, you know, the page source at that point in the time during your test case. And it's a way to kind of monitor. With Eclipse, we can't single step through a running play application, which would be the kind of the more elegant way to do it. If we had IntelliJ, then there would be nicer ways to actually watch what's happening. But for now, if you're confused about where things are at, you can do something like that to see, you know, what the fluentlennium is actually doing. Okay, so I think we've completed this. We've got our basic retrieval, a login, and our new contact. There's other, you know, so it'd be good to write a test case to edit a pre-existing contact. It'd be nice to, you know, do a test case to delete an existing contact, and to check that non-authenticated users cannot see contacts. So there's 3 other tests that would be good to, you know, to implement for a real application. But I think once you've gotten this far, you should be able to blast off these in just a couple of minutes. Okay, so it's been about, let's call it 40 minutes for an RX for this, and all that's left is to actually say, go to changes, and you can see we've had to change the main.scala to add in the IDs. We've had to change the new contact.scala to add an ID. We've had to change the login form.scala. So all of these changes to our template classes are all adding in IDs to elements so that we can find them. You know, because we moved to this in-memory database, we're going to have a little bit of changes to our SQL, but that's okay. We deleted our application test. We added some you know, an index page, a login page, a new contact page, and that's basically what we've done. So we're going to say finished WOD, commit and sync. All right, hope you enjoyed that, and you should be well on your way to doing testing in the Play application.